Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about the passing of Grandison, written by Charles W. Chesnutt. Now, before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. So, in this short story, what basically happens is that we meet the family of Owens. Dick Owens and Colonel Owens, they own this plantation. The father has worked hard all of his life to build his finances, and of course, this was written before the Civil War. It was during a time in America where slaves did exist, and there was a lot of plantations everywhere. And pretty much in Kentucky, Colonel Owens has this plantation, and he really believes in his slaves. He believes that he treats his slaves well. He believes that his slaves would never want to run away from him. In fact, he believes that his slaves should be grateful for being slaves because he provides them with food, shelter, and he's extremely proud by this one slave by the name of Grandison because Grandison is loyal. Grandison follows rules. Grandison seems grateful. Grandison, does everything that Colonel Owens tells him to do. Colonel Owens is so appreciative of Grandison, or he sees Grandison as such as a loyal slave that he's prepared to allow Grandison to get married to another slave of his by the name of Betty. And so, he gives Grandison alcohol to drink. He gives them enough to smoke. He pretty much he gives Grandison a lot of liberties because Grandison is a hard worker. He's a hardworking slave, and he follows orders. And Colonel Owens, he's even confident that Grandison is a slave that will never run away, a slave that will never betray his orders. And in many cases, in many ways, that's true. So pretty much, Grandison's kind of like this slave that's a lapdog for Colonel Owens. And this plantation, from his point of view, Colonel Owens, for his own perspective, he sees himself as a hardworking man, a man that built himself out of nothing, a man that built his plantation out of nothing, and he bought his slaves, and he feels that he works hard, he feels that he did everything right. And in comes his son. His son is called Dick Owens, and Dick Owens is interested in this girl by the name of Charity, and they're thinking about getting married. Now, at first, Charity doesn't really want to marry Dick because she says that Dick is not really that heroic, and he's never done anything heroic, anything notable. They're actually paying attention to a case that's very significant because what happens is they know about this case where this Yankee this individual, this abolitionist, pretty much freed a slave, helped them get to the North, and pretty much he gets caught and he gets sent to prison, and he gets punished for it and he dies in prison. And to Charity is saying that that's such a heroic thing because you get this abolitionist that risked his life, risked his well-being for a slave, and he rescued this slave and brought him to the North. So Charity is saying, man, Dick Owens, you're not really that heroic. You've never done anything of value. You're not really that important. You haven't really done anything that shows me that you're worthy of my love, worthy of us getting married. So it's kind of fascinating because her qualifications for getting married, Charity's qualifications for getting married, is not really based on the person of Dick Owens or his wealth or his finances, because people have different reasons for getting married. Sometimes people, they put more of importance on finances, on readiness for marriage. Some people put more importance on looks and on prospects and on assets. Some people put more importance on personality, on who the person is that they're getting married to. Some people put more of an importance on ambition and where the person is going in life. But Charity, she puts her importance on heroics, or how much of a heroic Dick Owens is and what he can do and his bravery and his kind of like what his character is capable of. So pretty much Dick, in a way, makes a bet with Charity, saying that, I'm going to free a slave and bring him to the north, and if I do this, you're going to marry me. And Charity's like, well, I don't care what you do, I don't care what happens. If you do it though, then we'll talk about maybe getting married and getting hitched and all that jazz. So Dick Owens, he comes up with this plan to get one of his father's slaves. At first, he thought about stealing somebody else's slave and get that slave to the north, but he doesn't do it. He creates this plan to take one of his father's slaves, one of Colonel Owens' slaves. At first, he thinks about Tom, his pretty much personal slave, the slave that take care of him hand and feet. A slave that he has to like take care of his clothes, his linens, on daily monotonous tasks that a servant would do. That's the first slave he thinks about helping escape. But his father doesn't agree to this. His father doesn't want that to happen. His father says, I don't want you to go anywhere with Tom. That's the name of his personal slave. His father, first, before all this happens though, he actually asks his father that he needs a vacation. He says to his father he's never really been out anywhere, or he really needs, he's feeling like he needs an adventure. He needs to get out of his state. He needs to really see the world. So he tells his father that he's going to New York. And his father thinks that, that will be good for him. Maybe he'll learn something about the world. Maybe he'll get some information about the movements of the abolitionists and what's going on with things like the Underground Railroad in the country and all that kind of stuff. And his father is also thinking about his upbringing and how he didn't have a lot, and that having his son go out and explore the world and with his money, it will be something good for him. So his father says, you can't have Tom because I don't trust Tom enough not to escape. You can have Grandison, my loyal lap servant, my loyal slave, my slave who loves me and who will never escape from me because I'm such a great slave owner. So pretty much Dick Owens, he leaves his father's plantation with Grandison, and they go off to New York. Now, Dick pretty much tries everything to get Grandison off his tail. He talks to abolitionists. He tries to make Grandison see the free world, see what he can do as a free man. He calls, or he writes letters to the abolitionists. He goes to New York, and then he also goes to Boston, and he does all of this just trying to get Grandison to run away, to escape. But Grandison throughout the whole journey is this loyal slave. He doesn't associate himself with other black people. He doesn't Dick even gives Grandison money to go and have fun and drink and gamble and anything that is of interest to him. He tells Grandison to go do, but Grandison doesn't do any of it. Grandison follows him everywhere. He takes care of his clothes, fresh linens, cleans. He does everything that a servant will do, everything that a servant should do, and everything that a slave should do. Dick Owens, he actually gets really mad, really upset because he's like, man, I'm doing everything to give this guy freedom, but he won't take it. Abolitionists approach Grandison and he won't go, and he won't run away, he won't escape, and Dick is fully prepared to let him run away and not call the authorities and not do anything, but Grandison won't escape. And, if you're a person of color reading this, it's kind of very discouraging, and it makes you upset because, here's this black man who's a slave who has an opportunity for freedom and he won't accept it. The first thing that's going to come to your mind is maybe it's his condition. His conditioning is so instabled into his mind that he can't think of himself as anything other than a slave. Like, from my perspective, when I was reading it, that's the first thing that's coming into my mind is that, the only reason why Grandison is not running away, the only reason why he's not running for freedom is because it's been ingrained in his mind to the point, that he's a slave, to the point that he doesn't see another world for himself. He doesn't see another reality for himself. The only reality that he sees, the only reality that he trusts is the reality of being a slave, is the reality of being a lapdog for Colonel Owens. And so, Dick Owens, he takes him to New York, he takes him to Boston. None of that works. All of the temptations of freedom that Dick Owens tries to push towards Grandison, none of it works. So pretty much they go to Canada, they go to the border between Canada and the United States, and pretty much Dick pretty much abandons Grandison. He separates with him. He finds a way to get rid of him. Get him get him towards the abolitionists. And pretty much he writes a letter home to his father. He says, Grandison ran away. And this kind of upsets Colonel Owens. Before he even sent that letter, though, he actually sent another letter to his father saying, man, this slave is very loyal. This slave is not willing to whatever I tell him for freedom, whatever I tell him, however I push him away towards freedom, he just won't accept it. But in the end, he writes another letter saying that Grandison had ran away, that he is going towards freedom, that the abolitionists got to him, which is not true. He just really abandons Grandison and he goes back home to his father. When he gets back home to his father, at first he's upset, he's mad, but then, it kind of goes away, and, he tells his father to lie about Grandison running away. Charity, Dick goes back to Charity, that he tells her the real story. She's like, okay, now we can get married. They get married, and then, time goes by, a few weeks go by, and Grandison comes back. Like, he finds his way out of Canada. He goes all the way back to the plantation. They find him, Colonel Owens find him on the road to home, and he finds Grandison literally in the wilderness, clawing his way back to the plantation, clawing his way back to slavery. And there's this line where, he's going against the North Star, and all types of literature that talks about slavery. We always hear, or there's always this ideal of slaves following the North Star towards freedom. The North Star is this freedom, this hope for freedom that a lot of slaves use to get out of bondage. And Grandison pretty much goes against that, and he's heading back towards slavery and heading back towards bondage. And Colonel Owens, his views are reestablished by this. He's like, yes, of course, I'm a great slave master. I should own slaves because look at this. Grandison had freedom. He had all the opportunities to escape. He had all the opportunities to be a free man, but he comes back to my plantation, and Colonel Owens is extremely happy. Grandison comes back. He gets a new place in the plantation. Now he's a house slave. He's not a field slave anymore, which is, a level up, I guess, in terms of slavery. You don't have to be in the fields. You don't have to be, tilling the fields and working backbreaking work. If you're a house slave, you're more of a servant, cleaning and cooking and taking care of the home for your master. So Grandison gets a new position. He gets more liberties. Colonel Owens fully trusts him now, and with that trust, something happens, and this is what's very significant, and this is what really shocked me because I did not see this coming at all while I was reading this. Grandison, he gets the trust of Colonel Owens. He gets married to his sweetheart Betty. He gets his mother and father, his siblings together. He gets his whole entire family together. And then Grandison, through the Underground Railroad, he escapes to the north with his entire family, with his sweetheart that he loved. He gets married. You can already see that Colonel Owens paid for that wedding. He gets married to Betty. Wedding happens wonderfully. There's no suspicion. There's no doubt in Colonel Owens' head. He's like, Grandison is a worthy, loyal slave. He's not going to do anything against me. And pretty much Grandison just literally ripped the floorboards underneath our feet as the reader underneath Colonel Owens. He takes out the carpet, the floorboards, the nails. I mean, he just pretty much takes out the whole foundation of the our beliefs, our views, our perspective. Grandison just breaks it all and just rips it all out. And he takes his entire family and they go to Canada. And pretty much there's this tense scene of Colonel Owens and Grandison looking at each other while the boat is just racing away. And Colonel Owens is like, Jesus Christ, what just happened to me? My slave is gone, and a huge portion of my assets, of my wealth is gone because that was a lot of slaves that Grandison took to freedom. And that's how the story ends. That's the passing of Grandison. Very significant, very interesting short story. Really pulled the rug underneath my feet, our feet, Colonel Owens's feet, because you get this individual that we all thought was institutionalized. We thought that this individual was conditioned. We thought that this individual believed in slavery, trusted in slavery, thought that slavery was the only way for him to live. But it was really not the case. I mean, throughout the entire story, we're looking at the world through Colonel Owens' views. We're looking at the world through Dick Owens' views and Charity's views. But Grandison, this individual that we thought was a simple slave, a stupid individual. I'm going to outright say that because the way that Grandison is pictured within this. Within this work, he's pictured to be dumb, not smart. He won't accept his own freedom. He won't accept the thing that every other slave craves. He's literally as loyal as a dog. He's kind of pictured, from my perspective, he's pictured as less than human. I mean, if you're colored and you read this and you read that Grandison is pretty much leaving the North Star behind and leaving freedom behind and literally going through the wilderness and getting dirty and trudging through the wilderness just to go back to slavery, it's discouraging, it's alarming, it's sad, it makes you sad. But then to realize at the end that he literally pulled the rug underneath our feet it's brilliant. It tells you that there was a lot of thinking in his mind. It's complex because he not only was in Canada, he makes it all the way back from Canada to his master's plantation, plans out this elaborate escape for his entire family, siblings, father, mother, and his wife, figures out a way through the railroad, underground railroad, and then finds a ship to take all those people to freedom. I mean, at the end, you're like, how did this happen? It's like, it really throws you off. And you kind of have to take a step back because you're like, how is this even possible? So yeah, very interesting story. In terms of deeper meaning, in terms of analysis here, it's a very significant piece. I mean, when you're reading this, you're thinking about, from the get-go, you're thinking about the conditioning of Grandison. You're thinking about how he's institutionalized, but he's not really. He's not at all. He was planning out this elaborate thing, and it brings about so many different questions. Now it makes you think about when he was in New York with Dick Owens. Was he actually planning this out with some abolitionists? Was he building the connections? Like when he goes to Boston and New York and Canada, is he planning things out? Did he meet abolitionists in Canada to tell them to have a boat ready so I can bring my family along? Did he have connections in New York? Did he have connections in Boston? How come I didn't know what was happening in his mind? What was he planning? When Dick told us, or when the narrator told us that he followed Dick wherever he went, was that true? Did he really just stay in the hotel and wait for Dick to come home, or did he go out during the day and plan all of this out? So it brings about so many questions to this character of Grandison, and how complex he is, and what was he planning out throughout the works? Because throughout the works, we're not focusing on him at all. The only thing that we focus on him is when he's portrayed to be as, not smart, not complex, as loyal as a dog, accepts whatever his master tells him or gives him. So this character, there's so much mystery about him, and we're left without knowing any of the details of this grand escape. So that's very significant. It's also just showing you, another thing is, it shows you that freedom is just a must. Freedom is a must, no matter how much your master gives you, no matter how well your master treats you. Not being your own man, not being your own individual, there's just no trade-off for it. Grandison was a human being. Imagine, as a human being, you have to ask permission when to get married, when to work, when to do everything. Even if your master's not beating you, the idea of having another human being, having another man dictate everything that happens in your life, it's not pleasant. It's not anything that someone wants. And if the story had ended with Grandison just going back to slavery and not really, accepting freedom, this would be a very dark and saddening story where, I wouldn't know what to take from it. But this grand escape just proposes more questions and makes you think about this character of Grandison. It also shows you how, before the Civil War, how a lot of plantation owners thought about their slaves. They probably thought their slaves should be grateful, should be happy that they get shelter, that they get food, that they work. A lot of plantation owners probably thought that their slaves were loyal beyond loyalty itself, if that makes any sense. Because Colonel Owens had this confidence, this bravado of, my slaves are happy, my slaves are not going anywhere, my slaves are loyal to me, and that's simply not the case, because a huge significant portions, a huge lot, pretty much Grandison takes back his entire family. So a good portion of his slaves disappeared into freedom, into liberty, and he had no idea of this happening. And even Dick, he probably regrets this, because his dad's fortune is his fortune, and he was probably going to take control of the plantation after his father died. He wanted to get Grandison to freedom, not because he was an abolitionist, just because he wanted to prove something to his future wife, to his girlfriend. So Dick Owens is not this saint. It's more that he was trying to prove a point to someone. So that's the story. That's what I had to say about it. That's my perspective on it. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment, and I'll see you guys in my next video.